Okay, we're recording. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the channel. If this is your first video, my name is Sarah Lena. I have a very special guest today, Nyna Caputi, and I've brought her on to the channel. Well, if you've noticed, it's all about moving to Costa Rica. So I've been actually following Nyna and her materials for a while now, and I thought, wow, she would be a really cool guest to have here on the channel. She's the founder and CEO of the Expat Woman. So we're just gonna have an open dialogue conversation. I wanted you guys to have her information in case, some of the community that she's developed, if it resonates, resonates with some of you, then I think that this could be another great resource and just support. Because I notice, when people are moving abroad, you in your life might be the only person that you know who's doing this, but just know that there is a whole community of a lot of other people that are also moving from their home countries to wherever that might be. Not everyone's moving to Costa Rica. Maybe you're thinking about Panama or Mexico or other places as well. So I think that whatever we're going to share today and whatever, I talk about with Nyna, it'll, be applicable to kind of anywhere. So thank you for joining us, Nyna.
Thank you, Sarah, and thanks for the lovely introduction. And I feel privileged that you brought me on your YouTube channel, on your show, because I know you mostly focus on Costa Rica, and so it's exciting to be talking about the expat woman and about living abroad and sharing my journey with your network. So appreciate this.
Yeah. So I guess let's start with that. So what is your journey? Like, where did this all start from?
Sure. So I moved to the US in 2002. I came to the US I came to New York actually to study film, and I was planning to go back because I had a job lined up for me when I went back to India, but I met my husband online, and he's a San Francisco resident, and I mean, he wasn't my husband then. It was just an
Mm.
online dating, and in those days it was so rare. Like this was 20, I'm like lost track. It's going to be 23 years, right? If people didn't really meet online, especially across two different countries or continents, but he decided to come to New York to meet me, and the rest is history. So I call myself an accidental expat because I didn't come to the US to live here. I came with like maybe one and a half suitcase, and I came to New York in the summer, so I didn't even have any winter clothes because it was an 8 week intensive filmmaking program at the New York Film Academy. But anyway, and my husband is second generation Italian, Swiss, French. So I'd say he's more American, but he still has, that the exposure to other cultures. So I think because of that too, we kind of clicked. We also have the same religion. We're both Catholic. We actually met on a single Catholic site. So I guess we had all that in common, and then it just led to everything happening pretty quickly because he was afraid that if I went back to India, I'd have one of those arranged marriages. So he proposed very quickly after we met. And then I came to San Francisco, met his family. And then 6 months later, we had a civil wedding pretty quickly after that because the lawyers said, for me to stay in the country, I had to get civilly married. Because if I went back to India, and I don't know, things might have changed a lot, but in those days, the engagement visa, if you engage, it took a long time to bring someone you're engaged to back to the country. Because I came on a special visa to study at the New York Film Academy, so I couldn't change that visa. So they said, get married to us civilly. And then, of course, 6 months later, we had a church wedding, and my family came from India, and I have family in Hong Kong and other parts of the world. They all came, and his family, of course. So that's how I landed up here. That's how I became an accidental expat. And it was hard because I hadn't come prepared to live in the US. I mean, who thought that, an online dating site would lead to marriage? I just did it on a whim. I was so bored. I hated my job in India. I was working then. I hated it. And I was like, let me go online. And the interesting thing was because I was in India and it was they just gave me like a free membership to this website, to this dating it wasn't a matrimony, it was just called Single Catholic. So I got on there for free. So anyway, so that's how I landed up living in San Francisco after New York. And I can keep talking because that led to me to founding the Expat Woman. It was really hard for me because my husband works in film, so he was gone for most of the day, and sometimes he'd be gone for like several weeks on film productions. And in New York, I was staying in a dorm with with women from all over the world. So we were navigating the city together. And then suddenly I'm living in San Francisco in Coal Valley, which is beautiful, very residential, but there's really not much happening. It's really hard to meet your neighbors. And I realized this is a really difficult journey for, someone who's moved to the country. And then in a way I was single because he was gone all the time. And how do I find a job? How do I meet people? How do I, learn how to navigate this socially and professionally? And that's when I had the aha moment that I need to start something for professional immigrant or expat women, whatever the word is, for someone who's moved to another country. Because, and I wasn't thinking of just Indian women, because after living in New York, I realized that you can be from anywhere in the world and still, you move to another country and it's different. There are hurdles, there's challenges, culturally it's so different. And I grew up speaking English, so I didn't even have a language issue with some immigrants and expats face when they move to another country. Just my English is what people say with an Indian accent. It's also influenced a lot by the British, so the expressions are different, but it's not a big deal. So that led me to found the expat woman. I didn't do it immediately. I did it I actually founded it in 2013 because in between I was working, and then my husband and I made a film together. We made several short films, so it kind of got sidetracked. But in 2013, on my birthday, I said I am going to found the Expat Woman. If I don't do it now, I'll never do it. And that's how it started. And initially, I launched it in San Francisco because that was my base, and I wanted to help women who had moved to San Francisco navigate the city. But since then, it has become a global organization, and I have women living all across the globe, a part of the virtual community. I still do events in San Francisco. So that's my answer to your question on how the Expat Woman came about and how I came about living in the US.
Wow. That's so amazing. I mean, you're very brave to have come over and started that new life for yourself. And I'm sure what you navigated there is what a lot of people that I work with that are coming here have to navigate. You didn't have to navigate the language portion, but down here, most people are navigating the language portion, a new way of doing everything. Yeah, how do you get into social groups? Like, how do you make that community friends? Because it sounds like that was something that was a little bit difficult for you, and then you felt pretty passionate on making sure that maybe others didn't. Did you feel like that you struggled a lot, and that's what kind of gave you that passion that you want to help others so that they don't struggle like you did?
Absolutely. And I think that's maybe a similar reason why you started what you do. Because I think no
Yeah.
matter where you live in the world, right? No matter where you live, it's not just the US or Costa Rica. I think any country that someone moves to, it could even be moving from one Western country to another. Because I've had people who move from Canada to the US who say how hard it is because things are different. But yes, my passion came out of a pain, of a need. And I did look, before I started the Expat Woman, I did look for other international groups in San Francisco. But in those days, there was really nothing much happening. So I couldn't find any group to belong to. So I decided if I can't find it, I will create it. And today I wish there had been an expat woman community when I moved to the US. Like I'm sure you felt the same thing. So yes, there was a lot of challenges and hurdles. I'd say the biggest one is the loneliness and the isolation that one feels. Whether you can move to a country voluntarily or you don't, it doesn't matter, right? It's really hard finding your tribe, finding other people who understand what you're going through. And I have found that I I won't say get on best, but I can really connect with other people who have moved to the US, who are immigrants or people who have repatriated, who moved back to the US, who have lived abroad, because those experiences no one else will understand. You tell even my husband, I mean, he doesn't really understand some of the issues that I face because he was born in the US. So yes, I mean, I'm sure you and I have, I'm sure some of our challenges would be very similar even though we're living in two different countries and we're two different nationalities. But yeah, I think the expat experience and the hurdles are the same no matter where you live.
Totally. I mean, just even you talking about loneliness and, you know, like when you move somewhere, it's not going to feel like home. It's going to take time. I've been here in Costa Rica for over 9 years now. And now when I go back, if I were to go back to the US, I know I would struggle. I would probably, I do. I mean, I go back to visit and I feel lonely and it's just everything's different there.
Right.
So moving here, I went through the same thing. The food was different. The language was different. You don't have like that core group of maybe people that you were used to having in your life before. So there is a big period of loneliness. So I guess for other people to be able to relate to others or connect to them,
Right.
that
And
is really important.
I feel we straddle two worlds because you never, maybe it's different for you. I feel like I mean, there's so many wonderful things that have happened to me in the US that might not have happened in my life if I hadn't moved. But I still can't say it's 100% my home. And now that, like you mentioned, when you come back to the US, you find things have changed. I feel the same with India. Things have changed. I've grown as a person with my experiences. So sometimes I can't relate to my friends. I mean, my family, yes. I mean, only my mom lives there and some aunts and uncles and cousins. But they've not experienced the experiences I've had, so they may not understand. So I love India, I love the US, but I still feel I don't belong in either country. So, I've been focusing a lot on the inner work of finding belonging within yourself. So no matter where you live, if you're comfortable with yourself, the country doesn't matter, right? Because the grass is always greener on the other side. So, but yeah, that I think as expats, we straddle a lot of worlds, a lot of cultures, a lot of experiences, and that makes us so unique as well, right? And very strong and resilient.
For sure. I love what you said about being comfortable in yourself because some things that sometimes you see maybe with people who are voluntarily moving abroad is that they think, I'm going to become this different person. I'm going to be happier. I'm going to be healthier. I'm going to change my life. But, it's not really a place that's always going to do that for you. I do encourage that people need to start making those changes prior to moving and that like making a move isn't just going to magically make that happen. But yeah, yeah, home is wherever you find in yourself for sure. So, okay, so you started, so I guess, so you moved to the US, ended up founding the Expat Woman. So where did the Expat Woman start? Like, how did you start it? And then what has it grown to be like this day? And what do you guys do now?
Sure. So I I started the Expat Woman. Initially, my goal was to create an online resource site. So I created a website. I started writing blog posts, and I remember like I was writing like what is Thanksgiving? How do you celebrate Thanksgiving? How do you speak American English? But I after a while I realized that I'm not really creating any community. And in those days, maybe there was Facebook. It was all social media okay, it was 2013, but it was still not like it is today. It was still a little bit slow. So I decided to start hosting in-person events. And I remember my first event was it's called the Press Club in San Francisco. It's a wine bar. I don't really drink. I mean, I do it on occasion. So I'm sitting at this wine bar with a glass of lemonade, and no one showed up to my event. And I
Oh,
was like, I know, right? So I was like, damn, maybe this is not working. But I decided, and this is why I also wanted to address, like with us who have moved to another country, because we have stepped out of our comfort zone and faced so many hurdles and challenges to make ourselves comfortable in our new home, we are resilient and flexible and we can pick ourselves up, right? You can't throw in the towel if you're unhappy and say, okay, I'm going to move back from Costa Rica to wherever you've come from because things are not working out. You want to make it work. So, especially when you're passionate about living in another country or you're passionate about your, whatever you want to do, your career or your business. And I was like, I'm going to make this work. And so I started hosting more events and I partnered with an organization that helps entrepreneurs start businesses in the US. We did like a fashion event, just like with alcohol. In those days, I had no idea about fashion. I would just wear anything. And I was like, look at me doing this fashion event with another expat. She was originally from Austria, a very fashionable woman. And we had this fashion show and all these fashion panel experts on the panel. I was like, what am I doing here? But I brought in a lot of women who are new to the country to that event through our collaboration. And the event sold out, and that gave me the confidence and courage, and also put the expat woman on the map. And so then I realized to build the expat woman to get visibility, I need to keep hosting these events. And so I started doing events once a month, and then slowly it picked up to 2 events a month and 3 events. And before the pandemic hit, it was 4 events to 5 events a month, like a one or 2 events a week. And because I realized that the expat woman community was so diverse. We had women working in product, we had women who were entrepreneurs, we had women in fashion, we had women in tech. Or we had women looking for jobs. And again, I opened it not just to women. I said anyone who wants to join our community can come to these events. So the topics were really diverse. And then companies started sponsoring our events because they wanted to hire women from other countries, minority women, women of color. So companies like Google and GoPro and Instacart and Microsoft. So we had Yelp, all these companies started hosting our events. So our events used to sell out. We'd have 200 to 300 people, depending on the capacity. I hosted one big expat woman career conference, and we had over 1,000 people. And when I came to the US, I had zero network, right? And I remember there were different levels in this space, and I was on a higher level, and I was looking down, and I brought tears to my eyes. I said, I cannot believe that I've created this, because it was a dream. I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur because first I studied science in India, and then I studied film. Never in my wildest dreams I think I'd be running like a business. And the Expat Woman is a for-profit business. It's not a non-profit. So that gave me the confidence to keep moving forward. But then unfortunately the pandemic happened, and all my events came to a standstill, which it affected my business financially, but it opened me up to start to being a global organization. And so I started hosting virtual events and bringing in women from other parts of the world into my events. And so, and also it gave me the confidence to show up on camera. Before that, I had major imposter syndrome. I would never speak at my events. I would introduce the expat woman at the events, and then I'd always have another person moderating the panels, being the MC. So with the pandemic, I couldn't hide behind the camera. I couldn't have everyone else showing up and then me hidden. So it pushed me to show up on camera, and that led me to hosting workshops. And I'm digressing a bit, but then I also became a LinkedIn coach so when one door closes, another door opens, and sometimes when a door closes, you get clarity on what your passion is, and that's what happened to me. I was doing the Expat Woman. I was very successful. It became a six-figure business, but I was just creating and not taking a step back because I didn't have the time. It kind of just snowballed into something that I hadn't even planned on. So yes, and before the pandemic, I did also host some events in Canada, in Hong Kong, in India. So it wasn't just San Francisco. I was doing a few in-person global events. Whenever I traveled to a country, I would host an event there. But there were no virtual events. So it's been amazing. I mean, I do miss the energy of those huge events because a lot of expats have moved out of San Francisco since the pandemic. My community has moved out, so my events are much smaller, but then I've grown this big virtual community.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, that is really impressive. You should be proud of yourself bringing all those people together, and I can understand the imposter syndrome of it. Sometimes but it's cool that you're taking the time to step back and, look at what you've created, and obviously took a blessing. I know COVID happened, and for some people, to find the blessings in that and to be able to step into something that maybe you like even more. That's amazing.
I'm sure was your business affected by, or did you start your business after the pandemic?
It was okay. So mine basically started during. I was doing it unofficially prior to that. And I had the YouTube channel for years already. So people were already asking me about Costa Rica, and I was already doing these hour-long phone calls. And then I was kind of realizing, I'm like, well, everyone's got the same questions. Then, of course, when the pandemic hit, I started getting hit with, how do I get out of here? I need help. What do I do? And then I was like, whoa, okay, so this is something. So then I just kind of followed that, and then it just really exploded. So that's how I kind of accidentally fell into this field. I just started a YouTube channel for fun, not thinking anyone was ever going to watch it. I don't even like social media that much. So it's one of those things that it was like a weird idea that I had. So anytime I have a weird idea, which is usually like I know it's not coming from myself, I'm like, oh, gotta follow it. I guess I'm supposed to do it. So yeah, so it definitely things
Yeah,
exploded
because
since.
I mean, hats off to you. You talk about me, but you're doing amazing, and yours is just one country. But it's also sometimes I think the niches are in the riches are in the niches, right? So like people sometimes want to niche down, like you niche down on Costa Rica, and look at how big you've grown. I mean, that was my goal initially with San Francisco, but with the expat women population, it's very people are always moving. That I think in your case, maybe people are looking more permanently to Costa Rica, but San Francisco is not like a hub where people stay forever. Like they move because they come there, because there's a lot of tech jobs, so people come, then the tech company moves, and people move. Like, look, a lot of our tech companies have moved to Texas and other places. So I realize it's not a place where people come to put down roots. So, it did make sense eventually to become global because like every time I host an event, there are new people at my event because there's new people who come maybe temporarily to San Francisco to check out and see if they want to live there or want to work there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is like I guess globally, I love that you're global because it is a global experience. Like all the things that you faced or that you've watched people face being an expat or an immigrant to the United States, like again, anyone else moving to anywhere else that's not their home country is going to be facing the same thing.
Right.
So, since you've been supporting and um making content, around this and just, having these events, are there anything, so let's say if someone's watching here, they've never moved to another country before, maybe they're on, they're obviously on my channel, maybe they're thinking about Costa Rica or somewhere else. Do you have any particular tips or top things that you would suggest that someone does so that they can, maybe if they feel like they might battle with that loneliness or just kind of that culture shock, like what would be some top tips that you would have for
Sure.
someone?
Yeah, great question. So something I do now, I said I'm very active on LinkedIn and I grew my community on LinkedIn. I have close to 18,000 connections on LinkedIn. Again, I had no connections when I came to the US. I'm not moving to any country, but I travel a lot. So what I do is I go to LinkedIn and I do a search for people in that country. Like last year, my family and I went to Australia and Japan. So I looked up people who live in Australia and Japan. I made connections with them. Some of them were already in my network, and I reached out to them and asked them for advice, for tips, or even to meet up with them. So that's something I would encourage people to do, like either use social media, if not LinkedIn. I mean, there's so many Facebook groups. I also use Facebook groups when I travel, travel to Japan, travel to Australia. There's and then of course YouTube. But I think really connecting with people in the community and asking questions. And if you're moving there, and I know you have an amazing group, so your group is a fabulous example of what one needs to do if one moves to a country. Find that group, ask the questions, see if you can connect with people, maybe do one-on-one, virtual calls with them to learn. And that people, I realize people are always willing to help, so don't be afraid to ask. If some people ignore you, say no, that's fine. And of course, don't get scammed. You have to be careful, right? But I mean, people are always looking to scam, so you have to be pretty wary and alert about that. So I think the most important thing is finding people who can help you transition into the new country, because that was the issue I had when I came here. I didn't have anyone. And as I said, I was married, and people think, oh, if you're married, everything is would be fine because yeah, my husband was great. He was very supportive, but he didn't experience he didn't know what it was like to move to another country. He's a man, and men again have different, like needs or wants. Like, where do you get a haircut? What are the fashions? Like, I would go for an interview and like, how do I dress for this interview? What's appropriate? Because every country, I'd say even every city might have its own culture, right? Like, I know New York people were very like fashionably dressed. In San Francisco, because it had more of the tech culture, it was more casual. But even then, like, I remember being invited to a baby shower. I had never been to a baby shower before. Now they have them in India, but when I came here, there's no baby showers in India. And I'm like, what do I buy her? How do I dress? And I remember this is another culture shock. And again, it's different in different countries. She was opening presents like in front of everyone. Now in India, when someone gives you a present, you don't open it after everyone leaves because it's considered, and again, this is not to point a finger at any culture, but in India, it's considered greedy if you open your present when suddenly it seems like you're too eager. And the other explanation is if you don't like the gift and and it shows in your face, you might hurt the other person. Whereas when they're gone, you can look at the gifts and crib and think, oh my gosh, what did she get me? So she was opening the presents in front of us, and I was so embarrassed. And I had bought, like, I forgot, maybe baby shoes or some stuff. Said, who gave these? And I didn't even have the. I felt so awkward. I didn't even say this is from me. I just kept my mouth shut because it was all so new to me. So even so, I think the other thing is understanding the culture, the etiquette. For instance, when we went to Japan, in Japan, you don't wear, like, you have to dress more modestly. You don't eat on the streets. Like here in the US, we're eating and walking. In Japan, it's considered rude to eat and walk. You eat at the restaurant or you eat at this. Now, I didn't know all this. So the other tool I've started using is Chat GPT. So
Oh
I
yeah.
asked, yeah, have you done that?
Oh, me and Chat are best friends. It's my therapist. It's everything.
Exactly, right? So yeah, so I used ChatGPT last year for Australia and especially for Japan because I asked ChatGPT like what is the etiquette, what is the do's and don'ts? Because the Facebook groups are great, but they can drive you crazy. And then I also asked, right? Because there's so much information. So here you can get and you can so I said, just tell me what is do's and don'ts for Japan, how do I dress, what kind of clothes to wear there. So that's the other thing, whether you're moving or travel, use the AI tools. One thing I would add is don't share anything too personal because once you put your data on Chat GPT and the therapist thing, I do it too. I've been getting tips on how to parent I have three teenagers, so it's like, how is that? But as the other day I hosted a women in AI panel and one of the panelists says don't share anything too personal because you're putting it out there in the universe and you never know when data could leak and then it could so you're saying if you're asking them tips on how to parent, don't mention your kids names, don't so we still have to be careful, but I mean for moving to another country I think it's totally fine. So yes, so that's the other tip I would say. We have today, it's so much easier to move. Like you moved 9 years ago, I moved 22 almost 23 years ago. There was less information out there for. And I would say the other thing I would add, if you can't find your community, do something like what Sarah and I are doing, create your own community. Host a little meetup at a coffee shop or restaurant. You can use social media to find those people or LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, right? If it's not there, you build it. So that would be my other tip. And as we discussed earlier, find belonging within yourself because I don't think any country will solve your problems or make you happy if you are not happy within. No country can you think, oh, if I move to this country, just like if you say I win the lottery and I have all this money in the world, I'll be the happiest person. I really think you have to find happiness and strength from within.
I agree. No, those are all so many amazing points. Um, like when I like for me, I moved to Costa Rica kind of randomly, but I think I stayed for a lot of the reasons because I felt like the culture was a good fit for me, like the values. I'm sure I had my little cultural slip ups like as I was learning too, like learning different things about the culture. But I would say like, with people in community, like being like keeping in mind of what culture you're moving into and it does not line up with your values, because then it is going to be
Right.
match for you and you're going to integrate better. And also the language, I guess if you didn't speak English, then you would be learning English living in the United States so you can connect with the people who live there. So
Right.
at least with people moving here, I really encourage them to like look at the culture of Costa Rica, learn about the culture, learn about the do's and don'ts, learn about the values, the style of lifestyle, and say like, does this fit into me and my style of lifestyle? And am I willing to learn a new language? Because those things are just gonna help you integrate, with the community. Like, because one thing that I did a lot was I integrated a lot with Costa Ricans. Some people can come and they might stay in their own little bubble of other expats or immigrants. But I think for me personally, it's been integrating with the culture here that has been super special. And then,
Yeah,
okay,
no, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Sarah. I interrupted you. You were going to say
oh,
something.
no, you're good.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you added those. Those are really important points, especially if you have the choice to move to a country. Like some people are trailing partners and they have to move wherever their spouse moves. But if you have the choice, I think what you said is so important. That does the country align with your values? Will the culture be too much for you to handle? Can you get a job there? Because that's also important, right? Are you able to work there? Because sometimes people want to move to these fabulous countries, but if you can't support yourself financially, and I know that, like I've spoken to financial experts for expats, and they say make sure you have like a safety net so you have money to fall back on, because the worst thing you can experience is move to a country and then not have the money, even if the country the you know it's cheaper to live in that country than the country you're currently living in. Money can still go quickly. So I think those are really important points. And I've been, recently focusing on cultural intelligence, which is what you spoke about, understanding the culture of another country and being culturally sensitive to the country, because I think it helps both in the workplace and in the community. And I love what you said, also integrating within the community. Just as much as I love hanging out with the expat community, when I host my events, I always invite the locals, the folk people who are born in the US to also attend, because without getting to meet them, it's like the blind leading the blind in a way. We need, it's good to know. And usually people who come to our events, like the Americans, are the ones who are really interested in connecting with the global community, because either they've lived abroad or they've traveled abroad, or they have a partner who's from another country, or they work with people from other countries. So I think that's such a great point. And of course, learning the language for sure. And even if you speak the language, as I said, I speak English, but there's so many terms I used to use, like British English or sometimes even Indian English. People had no idea. Like even my husband and me, even till this today, because we will argue about certain terms. I remember once saying the phone is engaged, because those days, when I first came here, we also had landlines, and he was like, "What if phone is engaged?" So if the phone is engaged means the phone is busy, right? And so or we call the trunk. Do you guys call it the boot or the dicky? And then I realized people, when you say the dicky is like an inappropriate word. You say, open my dicky, which is, you know, so even when you speak the same language, you have to be like aware of the words in one country can be misconstrued in another country. Yeah. Like I think they knock you up. I think I know in the US it means getting someone pregnant, but I think in England it means something else, because someone made a joke about that once.
Oh gosh.
So
Maybe like beating
yeah,
someone up, but getting
must
someone.
be, yeah, yeah, yeah. Or rubber is like the condoms in India. Rubber is an eraser. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of different slang. Even in Spanish, there's like, as I've gone to other countries, I've gone to El Salvador, Guatemala, Colombia, I'm going to Panama this week actually. So, and I've been to Panama in the past, but noticing the different slang there, like I'll even use certain Spanish words there because I am fluent in Spanish. It's not always perfect, and I have an accent, but I've noticed that even there, I'm like, oh, like this, oh, there's a lot of traffic. But I was like, like mucho presa, and they were like, what? Like, what is she? This like I could just tell them like, oh, they must not use that word here. Like, so yeah, even
right, yeah. No, and sometimes it's hard. You might not find, but I think now with ChatGPT and AI tools, we can even maybe what's the difference between Spanish in Costa Rica and Spanish. What are some words, right? So now we have it all at our fingertips. I've also heard they've come up with a little box where you speak into the box and then it's translated and speak converts the language. So right, you don't even need your phone anymore. You just say what you want to say and it'll translate it, and so you can speak directly to the person through
oh,
the
cool.
translator. Yeah, I
There's
haven't looked into it, but
phones.
yeah,
We have headphones that I got from Time Kettle. I can put the link in the description below. But yeah, it's like you put one and you give somebody else one, and then you can go back and forth that way too.
that's cool. Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love to hear about that, because we're looking at going to Italy in the summer, so I need to learn how to translate stuff. Yeah, that's so cool. I love it.
exactly. I guess so. When I'm understanding, it sounds like it's a good mix of like when you're moving to a new place, maybe getting connected with other immigrants and expats so that you can have those connections, but then also integrating as you're integrating with the actual country too. So I think
And
those will be
yeah, and I'd also say be prepared for culture shock and homesickness, right? Once the honeymoon is over, because you're so excited, you move to this country, you're traveling, and then after a while, when you have to settle down, that's when once that initial exploration and excitement is over. And I think for some people that's really hard. That's when you start missing your family, your friends, the lifestyle you had in the other country. So I think, and telling yourself that okay, it's fine that everyone goes through it. There's nothing wrong with me. But I think also focusing on your mental health, because I think that's something that a lot of expats neglect, because you just think it's all going to be awesome, and then you think you're very strong mentally, and then you don't have control. Sometimes something can trigger you feeling sad or depressed. I mean, depression, and it happens to so many who least expected. And I think there's no harm in then asking for help, even talking to your family back, even if they were against you moving. You say, I'm feeling like this, I don't want to move back, but I just want to talk to you. Not cutting yourself off, and not being shy or hesitant about sharing that you're going through any mental health issues. I think that, and I think it's important to keep that in mind even before you move, so that you have resources to turn to or to explore if you are suffering from mental health. And I know there are expat coaches who deal specifically with mental health abroad. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed more, that people need to be aware of.
Yeah, I feel like some people might think that they're like a failure for having those feelings. And I've talked about this, I have other videos, there's been so much on this channel. Like it's hard to find everything, but I've definitely talked about it before. And then like people think like, oh my God, it's gonna be so amazing. And maybe they've even been to the country before. And so I just tell people to ride the waves. Like feelings might come up that might feel unexpected, that yeah, you might feel depressed, you might feel really sad, you might feel angry, you're gonna be confused. You might be like, oh my God, like what did I just do? What did I do? I had all those moments, and yeah, I've even well, now I'm settled in here, but life's a roller coaster anyways, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, yeah.
you gotta trust the process,
I
and no
mean,
matter what, you're gonna be growing from those
right,
experiences. And keep good people around you. That's what kept me
right,
afloat all those years through tough times I went through. I mean, I got pregnant a year after I moved. I had a whole daughter. I became a single parent. It was worked, career stuff. And
right.
I was talking to a friend the other day. We were catching up because I haven't seen them in like almost 6 years. And I was like, I feel like I've lived 100 lives since I saw you last. Like, wow. We were like even looking up before and after photos. I was like, holy crap, we look like little babies there. Like
Right.
only 6 years
But
ago.
look at what he's created, or look like at what I've created. I don't, if I had stayed in India, I don't think I would have found what I call my zone of genius, finding your strengths, what really makes you tick. Like I wake up every day excited about my work, it doesn't feel like work. And I know sometimes it drives my husband and kids crazy because I'm doing all this stuff. Like you're always on the, I mean, of course I make time for them, but I tell them it's not work. I enjoy it. And I'm sure the same with you, right? If I'd stayed in India, I may not have discovered who I really am. And that's because we're stepping out of our comfort zone. As you say, we feel like we've lived 100 years because of all the challenges and hurdles we face. Even, I think someone who, you think some people's expat lives are perfect because of all the amazing Instagram photographs and, just this beautiful place they live in, a beautiful family. And I think everyone has faced something when they move to. I mean, life is hard as is, but I think when you move abroad, even if you move in under the most perfect situation, you still face some challenges. You still face, and then if you have parents in the country you move from, then you're also worrying about your aging parents. They may
Hmm.
not want to move. I have my mom. My dad died while I was in the U.S. and my mom was alone. I just have one brother. He lives in Canada, and mom is alone in India. She didn't want to move to either the U.S. or Canada, so we worry about her being alone in India. So then there's also that as well, that feeling of guilt because you feel you've kind of abandoned your parent, because you can't, you can only go for so many weeks or months in the year. It's very hard to, especially if you have family or you have a business. So there's even that to take into consideration. So as you said, and as I've said, you have to, if you're planning a trip, you have to take all this into account, and even then you can't control it. I know the pandemic happened, and for some people it really messed up their lives abroad, especially if they lived in countries where there was total isolation. During the pandemic, my mom got very sick in India. She didn't get COVID, but she got really sick, and because there's no one to take care of her there, I had to fly to India when the borders were closed in both the US and India. I had to get a special visa to fly to India. I think there were 4 or 5 people on the whole flight. I flew through. Dubai flew on the Emirates, and in India people were dying left, right, and center. So there was that fear, and I had to leave my kids and husband here and then be with my mom. So those are things again that are unexpected, and as expats, it makes it harder because if you have to go and take care of a sick parent in a situation like this, which you never thought would happen in your lifetime, so there's always that roller coaster, and there's so much stuff that's unexpected, but again, I think it all makes us so much stronger, and because of that, I think we do really well in whatever we set our hearts and minds. Not It takes a while sometimes. Again, people shouldn't assume that because you're an expat, whatever you touch will turn to gold. But I think it gives us the resilience and the strength. And maybe we know this is not going to work, so I'm going to move to something else, or I'm going to stay the course and ride the waves and till things work out.
Yeah. Wow, you're so inspirational. It's been
So are you. I'm enjoying the conversation, Sarah.
yeah, I could talk to you for hours, I feel like. So, but I know that you don't have hours, but I really appreciate, the sharing, and I hope that people definitely got something out of this conversation. And I like what you brought up about the guilt. You're right. That is something that I guess like hasn't really been talked about, and maybe be something I'd want to elaborate more on. There is guilt that I do feel living abroad from family. You miss important occasions. Just yeah, things life continues up there and you're not as a part of it anymore and sometimes. And so that does yeah, there's so many layers to it, right?
Right, especially if you have kids, like you said, you have a daughter, and if you have family back, you feel your kid is being deprived of their family, and your family, if your parents and your grandparents are being deprived of their grandchild. I mean, there's so many things, but these are decisions we've made and decisions they've made. My mom could move here, but she doesn't. And I respect her decision. So it's a lot of acceptance too, I think, and still, and I think then it all boils down to being strong and being open-minded and flexible. I think those things really help with when you move to another country.
Yeah, you're right. You definitely got to pull on that strength, be flexible, adaptable, creative.
Right.
Deep breaths, try not to panic. But man, it's a journey. But for me, it's been worth it. It's been worth it. I know that if I were to die tomorrow, I hope I don't. I have a lot more things I got to get done before I die. But if I do die tomorrow, then I'll look back and be like, okay, like I was on the path that I wanted to be on for my life. And that feels good.
Beautiful. That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. Yeah. That's so important that and you've created impact and influence. So your legacy will live on. And even if you haven't done something huge, if you've done it for yourself, I still think, as you say, you won't have any regrets if you stepped out of your comfort zone and moved to the country you wanted to live in.
Exactly. My ideology was also like, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll just go back to doing what I was doing. I could always go back to I could have always just gone back to Virginia and could be a social worker again. But I'm still here. So I tell people, I'm like, well, I came with the mentality, 2 suitcases mentality of if it doesn't work out, I'll just go back. I did have moments where I almost did move back, but I felt like, okay, if I go back, I'm never going to get back out. So I was like, no, I got to stay here. I'm going to make this work. So if you,
You.
I do encourage people if they do feel the urge of like, give it some time. Like, don't just go back at the first sign of struggle either. You're going to pass through some struggles. It's not all going to be easy. Give it a little bit of time. Like I think
Absolutely.
some people would say, like, give it a year or more. I definitely needed more than a year, but yeah. Well, I guess we'll wrap up and this has been amazing. Now if people want information to all your events, I'm definitely going to put all the links to all of your like what's the best way for people to follow you, stay updated? I'll make sure all the links are down below for people that are watching this.
So I have the Expat Woman website, which is the expatwoman.com. I do have a YouTube channel, and I hope someday to have you on my channel, Sarah. Maybe even us collaborating on doing like a virtual event together, because we
Love
can
that.
build up communities together. And I'm very active on LinkedIn because, as I said, LinkedIn was where I found my community. So it's just Nyna Caputi. LinkedIn and Nyna Caputi. It's NYNACAPUTI. You see my name there because I've seen the power in LinkedIn. LinkedIn helped me grow my business, helped me grow my community, has helped me build the Expat Woman. And I also have a membership, which is my inner paid circle for high achieving, purpose driven women living abroad who want to be part of a community, to collaborate so that they can get the transformation and results they want. Because a lot of us women living abroad who are, ambitious, sometimes it's hard for us to do it alone, and so we need to band together as a community, and that's why I created this inner circle, the Expat Woman membership, which is the expatwoman.com uh, slash membership. So yeah, there's so many links, so I don't want to overwhelm people. I'll share them all with you, Sarah, but I so appreciate you having me on this on your YouTube channel to talk about something that we're both passionate about, which is living abroad and being an expat woman.
For sure. No, I definitely want to have you back. Who knows? We can, like I said, I could talk to you for hours. I think this is really valuable for my viewers. And yeah, for everyone, if you want to go and check the links down in the description. And well, hopefully we'll be back. And if you need more information on Costa Rica, you can check out the rest of this channel. I remember the Expat Women membership definitely caught my eye. That was like, I've been in your email thread for I don't know how long, but
I want you
um,
to, I'd love to have you in the membership. We need women like you. So maybe
that
that's
would be fun.
something you consider, Sarah, because we love to have you.
Sure. I think I would. Okay, well, thanks guys, and we'll see you all in the next video.